In March 1944, a Swedish man would have a frightening alien abduction experience. The man wrote a letter in 1985 to journalist Vera Norling, who worked for the Hemmets Journal in Sweden. In his letter, he detailed a strange alien encounter, an alien abduction he experienced in 1944. Seemingly, the man had his memory of the incident wiped for decades. Then, in 1984, a bizarre experience reminded him of what happened that day and pushed the man to tell his story. In this episode, we will examine this 1944 alien abduction that occurred in Klissberget, Sweden. Around 6 a.m. in the morning in March 1944, the man, who wished to remain anonymous, packed his ski gear and headed from nearby Sundsvall to Klissberget. Klissberget is a wooded mountain that sits in the central eastern part of the country. The mountain is popular among outdoor enthusiasts for its skiing, mountain biking, and hiking. After arriving and ascending the mountain around 3 kilometers, the man put on his skis and began skiing down the mountain. As he was going down, the man saw something truly strange. A silver, spherical craft around 20 to 25 feet in diameter was sitting on the ground to his right, just down the mountain. The man was mesmerized and stopped skiing. He took off his skis and began walking toward it as if he was in a trance. As he continued walking under the craft, unexpectedly, the craft pulled him upward. Then, the man found himself in a room with extraterrestrials. There were 3 of them, and they were wearing loose-fitting, yellow clothes. The beings were around 4 feet tall and had some type of gray helmet that blocked their face. The man looked around the craft and saw all sorts of dashboards and lights, seemingly to navigate the ship. As he thought to himself how foreign it looked, suddenly he heard a voice in his head say, "From the outside." The man was then told telepathically by the extraterrestrials they were going to take samples. The man refused, but was forced down onto a table and was restrained. Next, the beings would perform extremely invasive experiments on the man, some being too graphic for YouTube. Some of the less invasive ones include the beings collecting saliva and attaching wires and tubes to his body. Eventually, being in so much pain, the man would pass out. Later, the man would wake up after some time on the table with a terrible pain in his groin. He was then guided to an elevator and lowered back down to where he was taken originally. Telepathically, the man was told he would be okay and that he would fully recover from the experiments. The craft would then silently ascend and disappear quickly into the sky. Despite what the beings told him, the man would suffer health issues in the following years. Due to a high fever, he had to take 2 weeks off work right after the incident. It got so high at one point that he passed out while just outside his home. Pretty soon after the event, the man seemed to forget the incident had occurred strangely. Then something happened in October 1974 that pushed the man to write the letter 1 year later in 1975. On October 24th, around 9 a.m. in the morning, the man was watching TV when something terrifying happened. The man was reading a newspaper when he noticed the TV turned on by itself. There were images of a forest, and then shockingly, he saw himself skiing down the mountain back in March 1944. Stunned, he watched as he skied down and then walked toward the craft. Soon, he heard a voice inside his head. It stated, "Look carefully. Do you recognize this?" The TV would then show the beings experimenting on him. Then they would state telepathically, We want you on our side. Do you want to come over to us? We can multiply your life expectancy. There are more of your kind here, and no one shows any regrets." The man adamantly stated no. Then he would hear, "We will be back." This frightened the man, as he thought he might be taken again. The man would then write his letter to journalist Vera Norling, detailing the story in 1975. It's not clear why he waited until 1975, but after the TV incident, it clearly disturbed him. In 1975, after sending the letter, the man would swap several phone calls with Norling. During the calls, he would explain he didn't want to reveal his identity, as he didn't want to deal with the public scrutiny. Furthermore, he didn't want his family to suffer the embarrassment. He would also state he had forgotten the event over the years until that day in 1974, when the TV turned on by itself. After the last conversation, he would send one more letter to Norling, stating that he had placed a brown letter in his safety deposit box. On the letter it states, "To be opened after my death." The letter details his experience and is addressed to his family. No family member has ever come forward regarding the letter. Based on the age of the event, he is more than likely deceased by now, so we will probably never know who read the letter and who the man was. It is possible he removed the letter, but more than likely the family read it and decided to keep his identity secret. What can we make of this case? It is surely a fascinating one. While the case relies solely on one anonymous witness, it seems extremely strange and unlikely that someone would fabricate this story. What would be the motivation for someone to do this? We surely cannot verify the story, nor the person's identity, but the circumstantial evidence clearly leads us to believe that this event likely did happen. We know that claiming to see a UFO or to be abducted by aliens would definitely be met with harsh criticism and ridicule. In his letter, the man appears to be very distraught he can't go public. His last sentence in his letter states, "All of this is true." Many characteristics of this case are very common with other alien abductions as well. The man was communicated with through telepathy. The UFO was typical of many sightings, being spherical and gray. The beings were small, like many other reported sightings and alien abductions. In addition, the experience appeared to get wiped from his memory, like other cases we have examined on this channel. One interesting aspect of this case is the decision given to him to go with the beings. It's interesting that he was given a choice and not forced to go. Perhaps extraterrestrials don't want individuals who will be defiant and tough to control. We will probably never know who this man was and whether further abductions continued. However, the circumstances surrounding this case seem to indicate that something did happen on that mountain that day.